Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Max Sayes, your host, and, well, some good news coming out of the City Ground today for our main episode on a Monday evening, which is that Forest are set to stay at the City Ground after all of that talk for a big stadium move to Toton and all the chants around the City Ground and the fan backlash. Forest are set to stay at the City Ground, which is great news, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Joined by Max Scott, Talksport broadcaster, and someone that me and you talked about it a couple of months ago, Max, about how big this news was surrounding Forest possibly moving. But just give us your initial thoughts, mate. First of all, hope you're well. Good to see you, and just give us your initial thoughts, really, on what's just a big piece of news and what we all want to hear, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah, good to see you, Max. Look, phrases like spiritual home, I think, have become somewhat cliche, haven't they? Particularly sort of in the sports media world. But I think for fans that were, fans of other clubs looking at this dispute that was happening towards the back end of last season, you cannot underestimate how, moving Nottingham Forest away from the iconic banks of the River Trent, right next to the county ground, next door to Trent Bridge, to move the club away would be the equivalent of ripping the heart out of the club. In a world where Forest aren't the only club, I think almost every Premier League club hiked up season ticket prices again. In a world where everything costs so much money, you can't put a price on the relationships that you build at the City Ground, the memories and relationships you've built at the City Ground, and how important that is. We all fork out our hard-earned cash to support the club that we love, and ultimately, it's a massive relief that it looks like on July 16th, the decision for Forest to buy the freehold on the land will be ratified. So we'll wait with bated breath until it happens, because there's been some flip-flopping, happen at the club before, but it looks like that's set to happen, and it's a massive relief, and it's an absolute no-brainer from the hierarchy of the club, who appear to have listened to us long-suffering fans and made the right decision.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. And it's just such a big piece of news, and I think it affects so many, and people that live near the City Ground, and us fans that go every week. But think about everyone that lives near their works. It's not just the football fans that are affected. So it is very, very good news. We are live on YouTube and Facebook, I'll add, if you're watching this live. So do give us your thoughts, what you think about the move. I mean, whether you thought Forest maybe should have moved to a super stadium. Are you annoyed at this news? I think we won't find many of those, but if you are one of those, then do let us know. Also tell Max that his background looks nice. We were just talking before we started recording. He was on about new decor, Max, wasn't it? You've been putting up some new posters.
Just moved into this flat, Max, and got lots of new decor. I'd like to point to this one over my shoulder here. It says Red Forest. Found it online. It's a nice picture of a Japanese landscape, but it says Red Forest on it, so I had to buy it. Cost far too much money, but it's centre stage in the new flat. Yeah.
It looks good, mate. It looks good, eh? The things people do for a Garibaldi Red podcast background. So just to touch on the news in a bit more detail, I know kind of Max mentioned it, but The Athletic reported that Forest are close to securing an agreement. That was on kind of Friday, Thursday. It's now been reported today. It's been pretty much sorted out, and which means Forest will stay in their home, which has been their home for the last 125 years. Now, we have a little video clip that journalist Joe Locker, who covers politicians and the council around Nottingham week in, week out, has sent in to us. So he's going to explain really the lease, what it meant for Forest, and now the good news with kind of senior MPs getting involved. So here is Joe. Hopefully this video works.
Key thing about Nottingham Forest City Ground is that Nottingham City Council are the landowners for which the stadium sits on by the River Trent. Forest in 2019 unveiled its big master plan to revamp the stadium, increase its capacity. The only problem was that there was only 33 years on the existing lease, so it needed an extension for this. But obviously, since 2019, a lot has changed. The council in November declared itself effectively bankrupt amid, significant financial challenges that many councils across the country are experiencing. And obviously, as well, Nottingham Forest were promoted to the Premier League. So Nottingham City Council decided it did not represent best value for city taxpayers, paying what reports from The Athletic and BBC suggested was £250,000 a year. And so it wanted more. Rough estimates said about £1 million a year. And obviously now that government commissioners are overseeing Nottingham City Council's operations to make sure everything is done with the best value consideration above everything else, I suppose. But now, hopefully, it looks like a deal has been agreed in principle, as the leader of the council, Nagat Khan, tells me today. She says it's a great deal for Forest, its fans, and the city taxpayers, importantly, as well. It's all been approved by the commissioners, so we've just got to wait and see in the next few days and weeks where things take us, but it's all looking promising.
There you go. There's Joe talking in a little bit more detail, probably just about kind of how the council operates and why kind of Forest and the council found themselves in this problem in first place. And he mentions there actually, Max, as well, the kind of lease being agreed and almost the council wanting to put the money up, and because the Nottingham Council went bankrupt, that added into it as well. But it is just almost a relief. And also, do you think in a way, it shows fan power again? Forest fans had a huge influence on the club keeping Steve Cooper at times, and it seems like the fan backlash may have put the owners off from possibly what they were thinking as not an escape from the situation, given almost the excuse from the council, but maybe possibility of moving to, a so-called super stadium.
Without a doubt, the Marinakis family are incredibly aware are always keeping tabs on how fans feel about the running of the club, and I don't think that's a bad thing. If you're running an organisation, then you're going to be, or you should be cautious of how fans are feeling. And it might surprise you to hear me say this, but in a way, we really need to praise Evangelos Marinakis for listening to the fans, right? I'm so curious as to what's prompted the U-turn. But regardless of that, and I don't know what's prompted it, but regardless of that, the fans' voice has been listened to. And he demonstrated that on numerous occasions when the fans clearly sort of made it well known they didn't want Steve Cooper to get sacked. Eventually he did. It was always going to happen. It's always going to happen in the Premier League to a club in Forest's position. But in this particular case, regardless of what conversations have happened behind closed doors, to which we can only guess, and I don't want to do that. I think it's great that fans have been listened to, but I think probably more pertinently, actually, Max, in a time of complete political apathy, where we've just had a general election where voter turnout was down 7% on the 2019 election, in a time where people have such lack of confidence in politicians, I think that the leader of the council, the Labour leader of the council, Nagat Khan, deserves so much credit, I think, for doing what politicians should do, listening to the voice of their constituents, or in this case, the people of Nottingham, and going and doing something about it, right? We live in a world where politicians play act in the House of Commons on television and sort of live off, how they're perceived on social media. But Nagat Khan's just gone out and done it. And for not even for a member of parliament, for the leader of a council to essentially bring someone like Evangelos Marinakis, one of the most successful businessmen in Europe, and arguably most ruthless businessman in Europe, a multi-billionaire, to get him to the table and to essentially make him do a U-turn is a fantastic piece of public service, and she deserves a whole lot of credit. So I'm not taking sides here. I think it's a great decision that's happened for the fans, but you've got to celebrate what the leader of the council's done.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, finding the meeting at maybe a halfway point as they've done, not that's happened. We don't know that, but just guessing almost there. That's a massive positive, because you think about how much income Forest brings into the city, the match day revenue, the just commercial impact is huge. And think about the footfall as well. Since we've got to the Premier League, you have more away fans coming in, and it does put Nottingham on the map with a club being in the Premier League. So it's a positive move really all round. And I suppose, Max, as well, there's talks and plans, and Forest have already done safe standing, which is set to be in the Bridgeford stand. And so the upper Bridgeford and the lower Bridgeford, that's already been completed. They're going to start to put these corner boxes in, if you like, where they've got the idea from. So that's going to be interesting. I mean, Marinakis is having his own suite built at the minute. That's currently being done in the main stand. So there's some slight improvements. And when you think about the City Ground, yes, the club talked about big plans a couple of years ago. It doesn't need that much doing to it when you actually think about it. It probably just needs little adjustments. Hot water in the main stand would be nice. Some proper working lights in the toilet. So kind of make that request. But safe standing, which they've done. A media suite, which they did when Forest got promoted. All these little things that are thrown in. So, it's positive that the club are moving forward and we're able to do it at the City Ground rather than have to move to, a super stadium.
That's why that's why the initial U-turn, having promised that the City Ground is our forever home, and that's literally the words of Tom Cartledge about Marinakis' intention, to then say that they were looking elsewhere. That's what was so frustrating about that, Max, is because the plans for the redevelopment of the City Ground were so stunning. They were captivating. You could see the potential to improve what is this historic place on the banks of the River Trent. And so, look, it's great to see that they're already investing in the meantime, before that big piece of work can be done on the Peter Taylor stand. They're reinvesting, and I was aware of the many millions that they're already spending in this off season on sort of the hospitality area in the Brian Clough stand, parts of the main stand, and these corner stands. That is really heartening, and I think that sort of alleviated a lot of my worries that they were going to move out to somewhere like Toton when they were just investing so much money. And if they were going to move away from the City Ground, then they wouldn't be investing that much money. So it's great to see, and I think the City Ground's got so much more potential to really develop its character and to sort of maintain, on the one hand, maintain that sort of historical charm that it's got in tight, really close, high, but then that sort of that modern take that it needs to be able to be more commercially viable and help develop the club financially.
And you mentioned they're developing the club and it being commercially viable. Is that something that Forest, I mean, it will be a difficult decision not to move, but to do more work and then getting planning permission and things like that? Because Forest report that the season card waiting list is between 10 to 15,000 people. They think that basically Forest could probably near enough get 50,000 people into the City Ground if it was that big. So, at what point do the club start to really almost push the plans, in your opinion, Max? And as you say, then it leads to the commercial aspect, because if Forest continue to be a Premier League club, then move up the table eventually, you never know. The heights of Europe may come in the next 10 years. Yes, we're maybe jumping the gun here, but you have to have that stadium that simply fits more fans in, because it's going to make Forest a bigger club on a whole scale, really.
Yeah, and that's the owner's ambition, isn't it? The owner's ambition isn't for us to just tread water in the Premier League, or keep our heads just above it, as has been the case in the past 2 seasons, but to take us to, European football. I've got no doubt that that's what he wants, and that's great that there is that ambition. It's going to take a lot of time, and I think that it's going to take longer than people would like. We've got to be realistic about that in terms of sort of those redevelopment plans at the City Ground. Of course, we all want that to happen as quickly as possible. I think the reality is it's going to take a little bit longer. But in the meantime, the club are sort of building revenue streams for themselves in the work that they're doing at the club over the summer. And I hope that proves fruitful for them, right? We all want the best for our club. With,
Oh, he's gone.
Sorry.
You're back.
I don't know where was I?
You were on about commercially and Forest almost doing off the pitch improvements, which makes the club better as a whole, really.
Yeah, look, that's what we want. I hope that happens as quick as possible. I'd like the club to be able to be, aware of fans in that process. You look at the season ticket prices. I don't want to go back and talk about it too much, but that hits fans' pockets. But equally, the club needs to develop, and so we've got to try and find a happy medium. But I've got no doubt that the people at the very top at the club will want to fast track the development of the City Ground. Should this decision be ratified on July 16th, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, you know, let's get it ratified first. We've only heard from the council. We're only hearing the words of Nagat Khan and what they're saying. This has to be put in black and white for us to be thinking too far ahead in the future, I think.
Yeah, you mentioned there as well. I think it's got to get put to council executives, and then there's a final kind of stage of approval, which, as you said, will come towards July. The end of August, I think, as well. Researching that the other day. So, in terms of Forest staying at the City Ground, Max, that's a big positive. But also wanted to touch on it today in the podcast that it was reported last week that Forest got 27 million for Niakate, as he went. And then we talk about PSR and Forest almost balancing the books, and hopefully Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White stay in, as the players return for pre-season today. Big positive, and just wanted to get your thoughts on that Niakate sale, because I know we haven't really done any PSR podcasts where you've been on, and just what you made of that, Max, because it was a big moment for Forest to get that deal done. Mangala goes as well, and you just think now, not only are they getting the stadium stuff right, fingers crossed, off the pitch, but financially, recruitment-wise, we might be able to move forward. We're not going to get a points deduction, and everyone can be happy, surely.
Well, it looks that way, doesn't it? I don't know Forest finances inside out. Wish I did. Wish I could see what goes on, but
you probably won't want to.
But the noise is coming out from reputable sources seem to suggest that the sale of Mangala and Niakate mean that we are safe. I think that is the most important thing, and the fact, if that's the case, caveat, if that's the case, and we've managed to stay within PSR rules and keep in Murillo and Morgan Gibbs-White, then the people that have overseen all of that deserve a massive pat on the back, because we were very much under the impression that it's a foregone conclusion. One of those, if not both, are going to have to go to keep us above water. And so that's absolutely fantastic. And it means, therefore, that if we were to sell one of those players, there's no doubt they're on the radar of lots of teams, then it has to be for an eye-watering sum of money. It has to be something that we can go and buy 2 or 3 players that can really develop the squad. I think the way that they spent the Brennan Johnson money was really good. We were able to buy Elanga and Hudson-Odoi, who at times in the season were vital for Forest. I think Callum Hudson-Odoi in the back end of the season, Elanga towards the beginning. That was great business from Forest. And so if they're going to sell Murillo or Morgan Gibbs-White at any point, then we need to be able to do that. And so things look to be, at a cursory glance, working very well. After a period of complete chaos last season, and so that's really positive. And just a word on Mangala and Niakate. What great servants of the club, what fantastic characters who were clearly respected by their colleagues and really respected by us fans. And, it's great that we can, have those relationships with players and have them come and do a service for the club and then benefit us financially as well. Great piece of business.
Yeah, for sure. And obviously, forgetting all of that, Forest get Elliot Anderson as well. So make
interesting one.
A promising signing. What are your thoughts on him, Max, just quickly?
Yeah, I always thought it looked bright for Newcastle. His stat sheets aren't sort of particularly impressive, right? But he's a young player. He's raw. He's powerful. He's strong. He's clearly got a lot of talent. And let's just hope that he's given time to be developed and coached. But exciting, yeah, very exciting. And we should be hopeful for that.
Yeah, we should be. Fingers crossed. And the Forest players return for pre-season today. Forest released all of the kind of videos and pictures of Anthony Elanga in. I've got to say, Forest at the moment have some, in terms of the first team players, they rock up to training in some really, really good outfits. Forest feature on a social media page called Footballer Fits, which means, I'm sure everyone knows what fits means. Come on. Maybe my dad doesn't, but it's kind of outfits, and Forest have some very good outfits in the team today. So I noticed that as they return to pre-season. They're set to go as well on their pre-season training camp, where they'll play away at Valencia and a few other clubs in Spain. They're just stopping outside of Alicante. I think they go at Monday next, so a week today, basically, after kind of the Euros is all done and finished, which is a positive. And also, Max, just quickly on pre-season before we kind of finish up really. I know I've spoke to you about this before, but this pre-season, given that Forest will now maybe have a bit of wiggle room with PSR, what do we need to do in terms of recruitment and also just, continuing the off-the-pitch strategy where Nuno will obviously build relationships with the players more? He's got that first full summer because the season's going to come round so fast, and before you know it, we're going to be in those crunch games before we first game against Bournemouth. So he's got to have those kind of crucial next few months really now, and pre-season is going to be shorter given that obviously the Euros this year.
Yeah, what would I say? Probably it'd be great to. I think we need a striker that we know can score goals and stay fit. So that I think that's really important. You look at some of the, we've lost Niakate. Do we want to develop do you want to get another centre back in? I think that'd be good. We've spoken about loads last season. I think they just need to strengthen the squad wisely. They need to stay fit. That's really important because we've been just plagued with injuries. And then just finally, can you work out, lads, how to not concede at set pieces? Right? I think that's what they should do. They should just hire in people to lump balls into the box and get them working out a system that means they don't concede from set pieces. I'd have loved to have seen the table, Max, if we'd have conceded just half the amount of set pieces that we did last season. So look, let's do that. Strengthen the squad, get a striker that's going to bag you some goals, and get you a defender that's going to keep the ball out the back of net and set pieces. I know that sounds jovial, but that's what I want as a fan, right?
Yeah.
So let's stay fit, work on it. Let's go into the season, get some points early on and just relax. It'd be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Day one of the pre-season camp next week in Spain would be the first one, even despite whatever conditions and the weather. It should just be set pieces all day.
Yeah.
Just coaches pumping balls into the box. And Forest, for to score. I know it got better towards the end of the season, but to score from set pieces more would be nice. And given the actual height on the team, and talk about almost aerial players, if you like. Well, let's utilise those and attack set pieces as well as defend.
Absolutely.
That would be nice. Just quickly before we go, this comment from Phil, which is an interesting one. I think we have several good reasons to be positive about next season. Must admit, I've been impressed with Freuler in the Euros. Wonder if we can get him in the squad, or is it too late? Obviously, England beating Switzerland just on penalties. It wasn't nice to see Remo Freuler quite upset on the TV at the end of it, but I actually agree with Phil. I actually think he's done really well. He scored. I thought he's been a bit of a leader for Switzerland. Would you be tempted, Max?
No, I wouldn't be. But ultimately, I'm really pleased that we've kept Nuno Espirito Santo just for consistency and stability. It's what the club needs. And if he's being backed and if he thought that, then I wouldn't be tweeting or posting on Instagram what an idiotic decision I think it is. It's clearly a decent player. It clearly didn't work out the last time round. I just want stability at the club, and I want the manager to be backed and for him to develop a way for us to play. And if that meant Remo Freuler was captain, I don't really care. But I do actually, because Ryan Yates is the best player on this planet, and he should be captain. But you know what I mean. I want stability, and whoever that takes for Nuno to have that, then I'd go with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can have a Yates poster in the background. We'll get you on as a start of a new season present, as a flat as a flat warming present, Max. You can have you could have like a life size cutout of Ryan Yates.
I would. I've got a mirror here, and I'd rather be looking at Ryan Yates in full Forest regalia. It's a full size mirror, that pretty much.
Yeah,
I reckon I can get Ryan Yates shin to head on there. So if we can organise that, then great.
We'll do it for the next one, promise you. Hold me to it. Right, I think that does us nicely. Just a few things from me before we go. We did an interesting chat with Newcastle United reporter and journalist Andrew Musgrove about Elliot Anderson. He kind of gave us the lowdown on him. That was our latest episode. So go back on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and listen to that. Really, really recommend it. The second thing, a week on Sunday, actually. So the week after the Euros is all finished. If you're at a loose end, get yourself down to Basford United. There is a charity football match taking place where, guess what, Max? I am playing and Andy Reid is the manager.
Wow.
There you go. I know, yeah.
Days, mate.
I know. Well,
what's your position, Max?
Oh, I don't know. Changing rooms. Left wing, probably, but I'm not the best. I'm quick. That's the good thing. I'm quick. I'm a skinny lad and I'm quick, so I can just run. But technical ability, Max, is awful. Do you know what? In fact, I'm probably like, can you remember Dear Carby that came where he just like kind of had his head down, threw the ball and just kind of ran. He was quick, but he just couldn't do anything with the ball. So
brilliant. Get down to see it.
Exactly. Get down to see it. And it's all raising money for Footprints. I know we mentioned Footprints quite a lot, but Nottingham-based children's charity that looks after children suffering with motor delay and difficulty issues. So do get down. It's such an important cause. There's Lewis McGugan, there's Andy Reid, there's Julian Bennett. Neil Webb is one of the guest managers as well. There's quite a few others. I can't remember off the top of my head. There's a few like Coronation Street and Hollyoaks actors as well. So if you're into your soaps, get down. There's all stuff to do for the family. There'll be food there. It's at Baseford. You can get your tickets. Literally just search the Footprints Cup. And if you go onto Footprints' social media page, you'll see it. I'll try and add it into the description here on the podcast. But a little promo from me there. So if you want to see me put some boots on and probably play awful, then you know what to do. Max, thank you, mate. Fingers crossed England win Wednesday. Would be nice to get to the final.
Be great, wouldn't it? It'd be absolutely great. But yeah, we can't talk about England, but can you see us beating Spain or France?
I'd rather play France.
Can we grind it out? Portugal 2016, they were shocking throughout the entire thing. I think they won one game in normal time. So I'm just hoping for something like that. But Bukayo Saka, what an absolute legend. I just love the fact that he was the man that day after all that happened in the last time round, and penalties were just brilliant. I feel confident. Yeah. I think we've got a better chance of beating Spain if it goes to penalties. That's what I think. Or France.
Yeah, we'll take that. Yes. As Alan Shearer said, pressure, what's that? The team doesn't feel pressure. Pressure is what you put in the tyres. That was a brilliant line from him on commentary. It was great. Right, that does us nicely. We'll be back towards the end of this week with another episode, fingers crossed, and then next week we'll be back. We'll keep you updated with whatever happens around the City ground, transfer rumours and all of that. And I'm missing the football, to be honest. Get it back. I never thought I'd say that. Get us, defending and attacking set pieces again. We've missed it. Right. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Do follow us across Spotify and Apple Podcasts. From me and Max, come on, you Reds. And as Forest all but stay at the City ground, that is surely a reason to celebrate. Bye-bye.